What's up, everybody? Welcome back to your favorite New York Jets subscription podcast, Badlands. I'm your host, Joe Caporoso. Sunday, AM Coffee. Last Sunday, AM Coffee, we talked Aaron Rodgers. Today, we're just going to talk wide receivers. And the jumping off point for that was a question I got in the Discord about Alan Lazard. Also, another question I'll talk about in terms of the Jets' offensive philosophy and personnel usage. But I'm going to use this time, this lovely Sunday, to talk about their overall wide receiver room from top to bottom. So my favorite position. And I'm going to try to stagger the Sunday coffees like this going forward over the summer, where each one is a little more of a deep dive into the, a different individual position. So if you haven't yet, also catch up on the other guys. Catch up on Buck the Trend. Catch up on TOJ Talks. Catch up on the bonus episode Will and I did, which went from a 53-man roster projection into a rant about Christian Hackenberg and then talking Aaron Rodgers. And, of course, the Rewatchables is live with Connor and I talking Chad Pennington games from 2002, which was an absolute blast, and we're going to do another game before the end of June. Before I get into it, very happy that we got a new partner specifically for Badlands and for Sunday AM Coffee, an actually old friend that we've worked with before, Magic Mind. I'm on day 3 here of starting my routine of taking this in the morning before I have my coffee. And I'm a very big fan, or I wouldn't be talking about it. It's definitely already feeling an impact in my energy and focus levels. Actually, like the third podcast I've recorded today. And I still have coffee. I don't replace coffee with it, but I use it as a mental performance shot. It helps just generally with, again, like the time release caffeine, being able to still have it with water and coffee in the morning. It's doctor validated, over 200 scientific studies around it behind every ingredient. Mushrooms, organically grown in California. Shout out Rogers. Matchis, highest possible grade that you're going to get. Got the nano encapsulation technology, which means that it absorbs in your body much better and much faster. You're learning stuff. You're learning some science here. The company also donates 5 cents for each bottle sold to mental health care charities that help U.S. homeless communities and is 100% carbon neutral. No risk here either. I'm confident you're going to like it. And there's a 100% refund, no questions asked for the first 100 days after buying. Pretty simple. Limited offer for Badlands fans that gets you up to 48% off your first subscription or 20% off your one-time purchase with code Badlands20 at checkout. I'll have the link in the episode description. And, every other week or so here on Sunday Coffee, I'll check in on my progress because I'm going to be working through this over the next 6 months or so, ripping one of these every morning. So, again, check it out. So the question I got on Alan Lazard was teed up by Isles Jets 88. This one's been sitting here for a bit. And I know we all crap on Alan Lazard here, and it's extremely well merited. That said, is it possible, albeit unlikely, that he becomes a good player for us this year with Rodgers at the helm? If you look at his last 2 years under Rodgers, it was like an average of 50 receptions, 7 touchdowns, not terrible. I also recall him having a decent game against our defense in 2022, scoring a touchdown and winning a 35-yard contested bomb over DJ Reed. He had arguably the worst QB room in NFL history last year. Any chance of a nice bounce back that surprises us all? It's not entirely out of the question, I would say. Like a better quarterback, like everybody on the team, is going to help his circumstances. Now, he's a year older. He's on a new team in a new situation and a bit of a different kind of offense. Is he ever going to be as productive as he was 2 years ago, 3 years ago? I'm not sure about that, but can he be a serviceable fourth receiver? Man, I hope so. Now, it sounds like he's had a pretty rough spring and OTAs, dropping passes, which, it's an easy way for a wide receiver to very quickly slide down the depth chart, especially if you have guys like Gibson and Brownlee making plays who showed some flashes last year. So that's what I think his big risk is. Like, those guys just might beat him out, and then it's like, he's getting paid a lot of money. It makes it uncomfortable around the locker room that people know he's also buddies with Rodgers. Like, it just quickly kind of moves into like a weird situation. That being said, like, he didn't forget how to play football. Can he still block? Can he still do certain routes where his feel for like sitting in his zone and working with Rodgers could come in useful on third downs? Like, can he play 15 to 20 productive snaps a week? I think so. And I don't think he's going to get cut. I could be wrong, unless like Brownlee or Gibson like really go off in the summer and they're like, there's just, we can't have this dude just being inactive every week, because then it becomes a story and it's like weird. So I think he's probably starting the season as the fourth receiver and playing a very limited role. I'm not expecting him to ever be that 50 catch, 7 touchdown guy again. Ahead of him, looking at the rest of the receiver depth chart, I think everyone who listens to Badlands knows how I feel about Garrett Wilson. I think the fact that he's had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons with Zach Wilson to start his career is incredibly impressive. And it's very rare for the Jets to have 1,000-yard receivers, man. I mapped them all out on Twitter a while ago since 2000, and like they are few and far between. And easily, Garrett Wilson had the worst quarterback and didn't really have a lot of support opposite him, like taking attention away. So as he's getting better in year 3 and having Aaron Rodgers, I think where you're going to see the real spike is the touchdowns. Like Garrett Wilson just hasn't gotten in the end zone all that much his first 2 years, and that's probably more on the quarterbacks than him. He's due to really pop and have like 12 or 13 touchdowns. It's been hard for him to score touchdowns, and I think that changes substantially with Aaron Rodgers. I don't necessarily know if he's going to have 15, 1,600 yards, because I think the Jets are going to run the ball a lot and Breece Hall is going to be the focal point of the offense. But can he have 1,250 yards and like 9 touchdowns instead of 4 touchdowns? Like, yeah, absolutely. And I think he'll get more wide recognition as one of the best receivers in football this year. Mike Williams, I love Mike Williams' game. It's just a matter of health, right? And when is he right? Like really right? Is it week 1, like Breece Hall kind of looked like right out of the gate last year, or is it not to like week 5 or week 6? And that's where it gets a little scary with the Jets receivers room. If Mike is right, what he brings from a vertical element is like a great contrast to what they're going to ask Garrett Wilson to do in the short to intermediate passing game. And once a quarter, man, just throw him a 9 route. Like draw pass interference, he'll go up and catch it. Like he's going to be a lot of fun with Aaron Rodgers. And if they get like 85% of like prime Mike Williams, like that's a really exciting player to have out there at X. So I'm cautiously optimistic. I don't think the full season stats are going to be anything like jaw dropping. I think when it's all said and done, he'll probably be 4th on the team in targets behind Garrett, Breece, Conklin. I think he'll be 4th, and I think it will pick up down the stretch. But excited just to see him. I'm just a big fan of the guy's game. He's an exciting player to watch. Malachi Corley, like the de facto number 3 receiver, and I think will hit the ground running pretty quickly with what they're going to ask of him. A lot of quick throws, run after the catch, screens, jet sweeps, motions. Hopefully, gradually, he's working to develop out that entire route tree, and I think he has the ability to do it, definitely. And I think he's going to kind of be plugged in like pretty quickly. Like again, the Jets are probably going to run a decent amount of 12 with Conklin and Ruckert, but in today's NFL, you're going to be in 11 a good amount. And I think Corley, he feels like 40, 45 catches, 50 catches. Again, not a ton of yards per catch with the kind of routes he's going to run as a rookie. Maybe he's only like 500 yards or so. Gets in the end zone a few times, but will be a key piece of the offense. And I think we'll get better like many rookies as the season goes on. We talked about Lazard. I still have my Brownlee stock. I think Brownlee can beat out Lazard in camp and be like a really good backup X receiver and play a lot this summer when Mike Williams isn't playing and be a valuable asset. I don't know if he's ever going to be like a pure starting receiver, but I think he could be a really good situational weapon, play in certain packages and add some real value to the receiver room. Gibson's an interesting guy because I think like, he has the punt return week 1, wins everyone over immediately. And then he was kind of like average at best as a returner the rest of the year, but also had some like nice moments on offense, like got legitimately better as a receiver down the stretch and is sort of like your perfect backup slot receiver. I think they'll find ways to like get him on the field. I think the staff likes him a lot. He's going to be on the team, even if he's not always the main returner. Like they'll rotate some guys through, I think, but I think he still could find his way to having some type of role in this offense. I just think they like his shiftiness and like him sort of being like maybe a slightly speedier Jamison Crowder type player. I'm not saying he's going to ultimately ever be a receiver who is productive as Jamison Crowder was at his prime, but as like a situational player and like using him in certain packages, like he can be here. Only other guy who may make it is Herb Charles, but that's really more through a special teams lens, and he would be the guy who probably gets kicked off the roster if and when they go get a veteran, which I do really think is on the table. I think they're going to be monitoring that market closely from a trade perspective in particular. Talked about this a little bit on the pod with Will earlier this week, but really keeping an eye on that because, man, one Garrett Wilson rolled ankle or Mike Williams recovery is slow. They get very thin fast, and you want to go get a proven veteran in this type of year. But on the whole, I feel like Garrett Wilson's going to be a 1,200 to 1,350 yard guy this year. Mike Williams is maybe more like in the 600 to 700 yard range. I don't think there's going to be anyone else who's really close to 1,000 because a lot of targets are going to Breece and Conklin. And maybe even Braylon Allen and Ruckert to a lesser extent. As I said, Corley's like in that 400 or 500 range, and the rest is like, let's see, you get a couple hundred from Gibson, a couple hundred maybe from Lazard or Brownlee, like cool, but nobody there that I have major expectations for. Of course, that whole equation changes if they go get a Devontae Adams and Ayuk or another veteran who, of course, becomes disgruntled because receivers always get disgruntled, much like basketball players. Only other question I'll hit on from our old Carter Ward #1 fan, but now Agent Zero. What are some foundational concepts and schemes fans can review to truly understand the 2024 Jets offense and defense? Something I'm going to talk with Will and Dan and Connor about from a film room perspective. Dan's shown some of this stuff already in some of the Buck to Trends in terms of like some of their dream installs. I think this team likes to mirror what we've seen a lot from the Niners defensively. Like it's that kind of defense that Saleh brought over with him. The way that they play that sort of cover three consistently, generally don't travel corners, although that may change this year with Sauce. Ulbricht's evolved some things. Like we've seen them like go from being too blitz happy to just relying on their front to get there. And then Ulbricht really actually knowing when to like send a slot corner or actually send a blitz. He's really dialed that in and calibrated it well. Offensively, it's hard to say. Like you would think, oh, this is just going to be a clone of the Green Bay offense. I don't know. I think there'll be a lot of elements of it, but I think they're going to want to run the football. I think you're going to see a lot of running schemes that we've seen in the past from Hackett and Rodgers when they're together. I think the offense is going to be a bit more run heavy than most people suspect. So we'll have some film rooms that speak to some of those schemes that haven't addressed them already. But I always look for the Niners inspiration from a defense and running game perspective. From the passing game, going to be a lot of backyard football with Rodgers and Garrett Wilson, kind of changing up things at the line, a lot of quick releases, a lot of smoke screens, a lot of quick slants, a lot of just like checks against a blitz or against man coverage and calling for a rub route and freeing up Wilson. You're going to see a lot of stuff that Rodgers evolves and changes at the line of scrimmage, candidly. So there might not be a lot of consistency in the passing game from an overall schematic perspective, whereas in the running game, I think you're going to see certain concepts that, Breece Hall running behind that offensive line is going to be fun, man. It's almost like impossible to mess up, and I hope Hackett doesn't mess it up. But we'll dive in deeper into that question in film rooms where we could really like dive into it the right way. And that's it for Sunday Coffee. Thank you to Magic Mind. Check out the offer you can use now. Again, code Badlands20. Hit the link. 48% off your first subscription and 20% off a one-time purchase with that code of Badlands20. Enjoy your Sunday. Other guys, Zach Wilson episode should be hitting tomorrow on Monday. Normal War Room on Tuesday, podcast Wednesday, likely a film room on Thursday, Buck the Trend Friday, TOJ Talk Saturday. We never miss a beat here on Badlands every single day with content. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.